last weapon I want to touch on is that exciting rookie they drafted over there in round 3, kind of defined big play threat at UNC, averaging over 20 yards per catch over his last 100 grabs, included 8 touchdowns of 40-plus yards. The guy can certainly stretch the field. Do you think that's going to lead to a lot of playing time as a rookie? Is he showing that speed off early in camp? What are your expectations for Dyami Brown?
So I think how much Dyami Brown plays is going to come down to how they use Curtis Samuel. Here's what I mean by that. If they use Samuel in the slot a lot, then I think you will see a good bit of Dyami Brown on the outside. If they use Samuel outside a bunch, which I expect is more likely what they're going to do, that's what they did with Samuel in Carolina, then I think you'll see Adam Humphries as the primary third guy in the slot. Not to say Dyami can't do that, but we talked earlier about Gibson and the amount of roles you're trying to learn and how difficult that is. So I think, initially Brown maybe plays more outside than inside. I would tell you that my expectations, because of just how much better this receiver group is, are that he's not going to play enough to be a weekly consistent fantasy threat. I think he's going to catch some deep balls. If you tell me right now he's going to have a handful of like 50-yard grabs this year, that would not stun me. I mean, I think they're going to have an offense where they're trying to go down the field, and that's going to be his role. I think of like, this is a deep cut for people, but like Aldrick Robinson over the years was a guy that would he'd go 2-3 weeks where he may not catch, but 2-3 passes total. And then he'd have like 2 grabs for 89 yards and a touchdown or something. Like, I could see something like that. And the only thing is, I don't know until I see how they're going to use Samuel, because I would imagine it's going to be a lot more Humphries in the slot and Samuel on the outside. But that's kind of the role I'm envisioning for him this year. And then they'll let him grow into being something, more consistent and more utilized as he gets comfortable. I think they drafted him to layer talent at the position and to bring speed to this offense.
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, that I meant to ask while we were talking about Samuel. We haven't seen how they're going to use him because he hasn't been on the field. First, it was due to the groin injury. There's also state reports that he's on the COVID-19 list now. How concerned should we be that he hasn't been getting acclimated to this offense? We haven't seen him out there. Is there any concern from the team that this could linger on, or is it something that should be done by the time camp's over?
I mean, coaches always pretend like nothing's amiss, like there's nothing to worry about, right? I will say that Ron Rivera has been very adamant that this is not a concern, that this is not something that they are going to lose sleep over. The only reason I'm going to double down with him on that is specific to the offense. Like, he's played in this offense. I mean, he was in this offense for a couple of years. He knows Scott Turner. I don't know that he has to study the playbook. I don't know how much they've added or how much is different. So I'm not concerned. I'm not worried about that. I guess theoretically I'm more worried about the injury itself, but they seem to think it's a fairly minimal groin injury, and they're just bringing him along slowly as a precautionary measure. Obviously, the COVID thing, while not ideal, your fingers crossed, he's healthy and fine. Most of these players come right back from that without much incident. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 2 or 3 on Samuel. If he starts missing action when they're playing a quarter at a time with starters in the preseason, then I'll elevate that number. But right now, based on everything I've seen and heard, I think they feel like he'll be good to go when he needs to be on the field.
Awesome. And not a player-specific question, but you keep bringing up Scott Turner. I know you talked to him recently on 106.7, The Fan over there in Washington. Does he drop any hints that his offense might change or evolve at all? I mean, last year they were top 8 in pace, top 8 in the pass attempts, even with Alex Smith playing pretty conservatively for a while. Has he talked about it all, the system evolving in year 2 as a play caller with Fitzmagic there? How do you see him faring in his second season over there with the football team?
Yeah, he's got much better players now. You know, he didn't really have good players at a lot of positions last year, including quarterback, where his tandem was a disaster. Alex Smith, for all of his incredible recovery storylines, played poorly. Dwayne Haskins played worse than that. So it wasn't easy, I'm sure, for him to call plays and to design offense. And on top of that, you had a guy who wouldn't go deep often in Smith and hasn't throughout his whole career. And I don't even know that they had the personnel to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They had a left tackle who's kind of a journeyman starting, maybe to protect him by not dropping, 5 and 7 steps and letting things develop down the field. You had really only McLaurin at the receiver position that was proven. And one of the numbers that Rivera likes to throw out there, I think he played 9 years in the league, and his 9 years in the league was more experience than the entire wide receiving core in Washington had last season going into the year. So now you add Curtis Samuel and Adam Humphries to that, and you draft Dyami Brown. It's a different group. The one thing I'll say that was pretty clear with Scott Turner, number one, he loves the speed. That's something they wanted to fix, and he feels like they have. And number two, and it was pretty clear, and this is an easy thing to say in the summer, but he really does believe, you use the word dynamic or exotic or whatever, but he really does believe that they're going to have a chance to go down the field a lot more. And I think he's really excited about that. He wants to make bigger plays. He knows that they have to get some things easier. They had to go on these long marathon 13-play drives and run all the plays because it's just too hard in this league to do that. You get a holding penalty and you're screwed, or one thing goes wrong and now you're behind the sticks. So I think he's planning this year on this offense being a little bit more prolific and yards coming in chunks. I think that's kind of what he hopes with the playmakers that they've added.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Grant, so much for your time today. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.